Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everybody who is joining our session tonight. It's very happy for having you all here in as part of our Nusantara Planning and Design Competition event, as we have several lecture series, and we have now come into the, if I'm not mistaken, the fourth week of our lecture series. And tonight, or very early morning there in Mexico, we have our special guest lecture. I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Pedro Camarena.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, co-founder of LAAP Workshop and Landscape Architects, and from the UNAM, yes, University, the only landscape architect for undergraduate program in Mexico. It's very interesting for me to know
That's correct.
that information tonight. So very much appreciated, Pedro. You're able to joining us so early from Mexico. Yeah, and very much appreciated. And I hope your lecture tonight from Indonesia can give a interesting perspective for the participant who will later on hopefully will join the planning and design competition for our new capital Nusantara, and you will bring the idea on the geopark perspective. And yeah, I'm happy also to inform all the participants here that our planning competitions is developed based on our collaboration from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University, and Mars Architects with Neville Mars. And yeah, look forward to have your presentation, Pedro, and hope that we can continue with the fruitful discussions. Before I pass this to you, maybe Pak Neville, you would like to also introduce Pedro and further information on the competitions. I hand it over to you, Neville. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Professor Urik. I have to say you touched all the important points already. That makes my job much easier. I won't have to try and pronounce the Spanish. That's great. And I can just focus on one kind of core bit of content. So Pedro and I have known each other now for actually already quite a long time, and I'm honestly very proud and honored that he's joining us in this series, because he's one of those really rare people that, on the one hand, combines practice and theory, working both, as you mentioned, in his own practice and in UNAM, a leading institute, and the only one that does has a full course on landscape design. But more importantly, he's one of the few people, I think, that let's say traverses the scales in a way that is really rare and I think extremely important, going from the nitty-gritty and technical details of individual plants, which he does with extreme passion. Please visit him in Mexico, and he will take you and show that. And that was really one of the most wonderful experiences. And then zoom out and really explain what it is to operate at the scale of a region. That's something so few of us know how to do, or even are aware of, that it's important, how those different scales and different time frames enact on the landscape and enact on our human habitat. So with that, I will leave the rest to you. It's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see you up so early. We will never do that again. The floor is yours, Pedro.
Thank you, Neville. Thank you. No, it's an honor for me to be here with you, and I think it's very nice to see Neville again. We were as he said, we meet each other many years ago, and now he's in Indonesia, and I love this movement in around the world. There's a lot of people around the world doing landscape design, And the thing I love more is we are connected. So that's very important for the profession to be in connected somehow. Well, I'm going to present some things about the regional scale in landscape design, because I love that part of the landscape design. And I choose 3 cases, but I hope you enjoy and like, and I hope you feel and understand my approach for landscape design in this scale, in regional scale. Well, I'm going to share. Can I share screen?
Yeah, that should.
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect. Well, let me say first that I'm living in a place, a very special place. It's a place about volcanoes and lakes. And we are about 2,000 meters from sea level. So it's this condition is very, very unusual. I mean, it's not easy to see this kind of landscape in a big city. Well, as you can see here, I can move this green bar. Do you see the green bar? No?
Not really from my
Okay.
side.
Okay, perfect. It's because I see something here. Well, if you
Yeah,
don't,
the recording machine. If you click OK, it should be fine.
click OK where? Okay, I mean, I continue, no?
Yeah.
You tell me if you see. Okay, first I'm going to talk about one area that's very important for me, the Pedregal de San Ángel. This is a lava field in the southwestern side of Mexico City. Then I'm going to talk about the lacustrine area, the Lago de Texcoco. And finally, I'm trying to explain a little bit the geopark concept from UNESCO. That is, I think it's very, very, it's an important tool to manage the landscape. The context is, this is Mexico, and in the center, there is the well-developed area in the center of Mexico. There's a lot of cities surrounding Mexico. Well, not a lot, but there's many, many important cities surrounding Mexico City. This is the metropolitan area or Great Mexico area. I don't know how to say. Another important thing is that in the map, in the red map, you can see the high risk water. I mean, there are many places without a lot of water. So stress water plan, this is the name of this map, stress water. And Mexico Basin is exactly in this map, in the worst area. Many years ago, this place was a big lake, but now they dry all of this place, and now we have a lot of scarcity of water. We don't have water. So we have to collect again a lot of water if we want to survive in this area. This is an extreme range of alteration and a high pressure level, because there's 22 million people living in this area. I saw this in artificial intelligence. One guy showed me he asked, how will be Mexico City in 50 years? Well, in 2050. And artificial intelligence give him this panorama. A crowded, a polluted city in 2049. So, and I said, well, where is the parks in Mexico? No, where is the green city? I think this is Gotham City, no, like a Batman. It's very scary for me to think this will be my city and my children's city in just in a few years. Well, the context is that Mexico City is in the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt. That is this red mark you see in the map. And because of that reason, we have a lot of mountains and many lakes. Why this happens? Because there are two huge areas, the Placa de Cocos and Placa de Norteamérica. I don't know if you understand. These are earth plaques. I don't know how to say. Earth in the exterior of the planet, there are moving some plates, and they are collision, and they form these fire zones around the globe. So one of the fire zones here in the plateau of Mexico. And that's why there's a lot of mountains, and that's why there's a lot of water, because it rains a lot. The mountains caption the water and then create these big lakes. And that's the reason there are a lot of pre-Hispanic settlements around these areas from many years ago. The other nice condition is biographic location. We have in the north the Nearctic zone, in the south the Neotropical zone, and in the middle the transitional zone. That's why in this area there's a higher level of biodiversity, because it combines the northern and the southern ecosystems. And if there's plenty of water, here there is a place for a lot of biodiversity and a lot of species from flora and fauna species. This lake was formed about 1 million years ago with this sierra at the south. You can see in the slide, in the inferior, in the low part of the photograph, the map. And the Valley of Mexico formed 1 million years ago with these 5 lakes that in the rainy season, they create one lake, and in the dry season, they separate and create 5 lakes: Zumpango, Jaltocan, Texcoco, Xochimilco, and Chalco. There are 5 lakes, and the big one is Texcoco. It's a salty lake because there's a lot of soils came from the volcanoes and create this salty and alkaline soil. You're going to see in next slides. Well, in the other hand, we have this, I said, at the crossroads of a lot of species that migrate from the north to the south and then return again to the north. So especially birds flying from North America come across Mexico and go down to South America. I think Mexico is a country of migrations, and that's very important. And this is the basin, again, this is the basin of Mexico City. And I realized I have been working here for many years, and I understand some parts of this puzzle. I mean, the south is more, is geologically is more new part of the basin, and that's the reason is a place to collect water. But in the center and in the north, there are geological old formations, and it's not too filled. I mean, these places used to be the runoff waters, and the south part is the infiltration system, more or less. Well, let me say something about my references in landscape design. For sure, you know about this guy. He is Frederick Law Olmsted, the landscape architect who created the Central Park in New York, but also a system of parks in Boston, in the city of Boston, and he put the name of emerald necklace. No? I think this is a very, very important concept in nowadays, because as Frederick Law Olmsted says, we don't need one park in the city. We need a park system and many parks that conform systems around the city. And that's very important and clever because, for example, these places allow us to control the floodings. And as you can see in Spain and more recently in Spain, in Valencia, flooding is a very, very, its relation is, flooding areas, the reason is they are urbanizing very high, at high speed. So if we don't think about in a park system that help us to control in the flooding, the future cities will be very, very dangerous cities. So that's why for me, this guy is a reference. The other one is Roberto Burle Marx, Brazilian landscape architect, who combines art and botany, the study of plants. Why? Because he lives in Brazil. And Brazil is one of the most powerful countries if we are talking about biodiversity. So this guy says more or less 100 years ago, why we don't use the natural and the native flora of Brazil to design and to create parks in the cities of Brazil. So he explored the Amazonian for many, many years, and he collected a lot of plants, and he decided to use that plants in the design, in landscape design in Brazil. And the other reference, another hero for me is Ian McCarr. He's an Scottish landscape architect that developed this methodology in Pennsylvania, in UPenn University, and create this famous and beautiful book, Design with Nature. I think this is the most important book for landscape architects. You have to read this and use this methodology if you want to plan some things at regional scale. So it's very important to know this guy if you want to know a methodology for planning, for planned territory. Okay, I'm going to show you very fast new models of contemporary landscape in this book, 3030 Landscape Architecture from Megan Campbell in UK. As you can see, I'm gonna go very fast. These are projects that include native flora, for example, in parks and urbanization. They include, of course, a lot of water, rivers and lagoons and many other water systems inside the cities, and maybe creating some mobility with this flooding rivers. They use a lot of, they use plots of wildflowers to protect and give some habitat for insects, for example. So it is very important now in the urban design, because we need to invite wild flora and wild insects and pollination and all of that inside the city. That's another example. They use Clever, the landscape. This is a landfill in Spain, and they finish the topography and create a park over at the top of a landfill. So it is not a bad place. Now it's a better place to be. It's a park. They recycle infrastructures for producing salt or many other things in parks to rehabilitate habitat for different species of flora and fauna. They recycle old quarries. No, this is a creek park in Toronto, in Canada. They restore some mining zones, quarries, and convert in urban parks. Or for example, this one, you know for sure, the High Line in New York City is a recycling project in a train useless track. So he converted this in a kind of a elevate park in West Manhattan. And that is another thing happens. For example, they create agricultural land inside the city. This is a project in Chicago, recultivating and creating a productive land inside the urban places. And for example, regenerating rivers, lake shores, and all of these places. There are many specific sites, for example, this one in Chile, that the only intervention is in the stone, and it's very simple but very beautiful. Or this in Africa, in Nairobi. These very simple structures that provide only peace and wellness. This is Jacqueline Osti in Paris, France. He articulates the park within the city and create this articulations between city and the green areas and the parks. And for example, this is an oyster land production in Manhattan. This is a revolutionary idea to use the marine and lakes and many other water systems to produce, to clean the water and produce inside these waterscapes. And the important work made by Kong Zhenju in China, creating this idea of sponge cities, to restore the landscape and create protection zones for flooding, for risk flooding in many cities in China. So we have to consider these climate change issues and create these spaces in order to control floodings all around the world. I mean, not only in China, we have to do this, as you see, in Spain and Mexico and everywhere. And Another interesting landscape design now is the migrant camps to help people to move between many countries, because migrants are growing, and we have to create better places to support people everywhere. This is a place to protect people because the tsunami in Japan. So we have to develop these ideas all around the world. Okay, I'm going to focus in my work first in the Pedregal, then in the Lake of Texcoco, and finally I'm going to mention something about geoparks UNESCO. First, these 80 square kilometers in the southwestern Mexico City it was a field of lava covered all this huge extension of Mexico City, and if you can see, they start creating the university campus of the National University in, you see at the top of the photograph, and the Jardines del Pedregal, the famous work done by Luis Barragan, a Mexican architect who understands perfect the beauty of the lava field, and try to create a new way of life in near Mexico City at that time. I mean, 1954. But take a look what happened in only in 30 years. Basically, the city, the lava field was eaten by the city, because the urban sprawl in the south. And in the center, there is the campus of the university. So we worked a program, we worked on a landscape program, trying to restore the ecosystem that was covered this place and was destroyed by the construction of the university campus. So you can see here in these green maps, the campus in 1954, and finally how the campus grows, like the city, like the sprawl city, over the ecosystem and destroying the ecosystem. So, and you can see down in photograph, the ecosystem in the dry season and the ecosystem, the same ecosystem in the green, in the rainy season. And if you see this, it's very important to understand what beautiful is the landscape without managing, I mean, without designing nothing. So the idea of landscape architects working in this place is to restore that ecosystem and let the ecosystem works alone, only managing some things. So we said we need design with wide landscape in order to have less maintenance and less or zero irrigation, and more biodiversity and more identity. So we have to switch mind and trying to understand the new paradigm of landscape architecture, because we need to face that we have to understand ecosystems all around the world and work with ecosystem, design with nature again. And we have many better things. We can infiltrate water, we restore the biodiversity, and we create spaces to mobility and restoring the public space. And one of the ways we try to understand landscape is about this methodology, landscape units. We have to try to collect different pieces of the ecosystem and describe them in order to comprehend, in order to understand, and then work with that landscape units. So this is a taxonomy of the landscape made by my students and I, in order to understand. For example, there's a landscape with a lot of sun insolation, but there's another landscape moving more northern with less isolation, with less insulation, and is more humid and cold. And the other one is more hot and dry. So this micro ambience inspire us to create different kind of gardens in the lava field inside the campus. And we start develop a lot of ideas in order to connect and create corridors of biodiversity and connecting patches, because the university create a natural preserve area in the south of the campus, and develop this idea to restore and use the landscape. So we worked a lot of projects inside the university campus, but the idea is to move these prototypes around this 80 square kilometers surrounding not only the campus, but the southwestern of Mexico City. Create linear parks, collect rainwater, don't use many exotic species of flora, and then irrigate and pruning and maintain and maintenance, but create more simple and beauty landscapes, and trying to make four projects in one: recover water, recover mobility, public space, and increase biodiversity in one packet in one project. These are some schemes. Is more a project of we said it's more archaeological landscape archaeology, because we restore the landscape. We restore the landscape when in the 1950s they start to destroying. So we want to see the landscape like in 1950s, and this is the results. Restore the stone, the black stone of lava. There are pieces of art there because the Olympics in 1968, and use the plants that needs to grow in the stone. They don't need soil, they don't need maintenance, they don't need nothing. And create these kind of gardens, more natural environments inside building settlements, and without maintenance and without irrigation. So you can see we made about 30 projects in the campus, inside the campus, and we are working go out to the campus and create this new paradigm of gardening outside the campus. So we are work with stone. We want to create places with less soil, less water, and a huge insulation, a lot of sun. That's the condition where this native flora can live. And we have we have plenty of species in that area. So we focus on understand why and how many different plants are, and the potential of use these plants in design, and it's incredible the amount of different species we can use. And if we use this, we can attract birds, insects, mammals, and many other different animals. Let me say that there is two endemisms flora and one endemism in fauna. This is one orchid, Blety urbana. This is a cactus plant, Mammillaria sonagelensis, and there's a frog, Eleuterodactylus grandis, that is endemic for the Pedregales. I have to go more faster. In this map, you can see 30 projects of conversion of these typical gardens, like French style gardens, and we convert these gardens in Streetscape gardening. And we developed more than 30 projects around the campus. And now this is the aspect of that project. So I feel very, very happy to start moving in this direction inside the campus. We have to protect the use of water because we don't have water. So this is very helpful. This is a new concept of landscape. And we also receive an international award, Carlos Carpa Prize for Gardens. We received that award in May this year. So we are very proud and very happy to see that many people outside Mexico says that's a good work and keep on working on that. The other project is Texcoco Lake. Neville was here in Mexico when I started to make this project, and very fast again. This is Texcoco Lake in the year 1350, pre-Hispanic. There were no Spaniards here, and the culture lives in the water. They plant cities in a lake, so it's very different concept. And when the Spaniards came in 150, in 1500 year, they found this city in the lake, and they say, wow, this is a new concept of living surrounded by water. And they didn't understand that. They don't understood, and they say, no, we have to dry this and put out the water, because this is very difficult to understand for us, I mean the Spaniards. So they start drying the city, the lakes, and finally, in the 20th century, the city was, the water was disappeared from the city. And the only place we have a little bit of water is Texcoco Lake. They want to create this is the urban sprawl in 100 years. I said, this is not a city, it's a metastacity. No, again, in the national context is in the center of the country, southern center. And now I said this is a modern Latin American Central Park, because it's between 5 metropolitan areas. In the center, Mexico City, greater area, but in the north you have Tula, Pachuca, and in the east you have Puebla, Tlaxcala, and south you have Cuernavaca, Cuautla, and in western you have Toluca. So there are 5 emerging cities growing faster, and this red spot is the new central park of this huge metropolitan area. So we studied the natural conditions, again, the Ian Mahart methodology, to understand the highs, the natural protected areas, weather, the temperature, the flooding, rain, geological, this is precipitation, flood, superficial waters, runs of water, underground water moving. We try to understand a big scale of surrounding areas around this park, many airports surrounding this one, and the population and the typology, urban typology in Mexico City and surrounding areas. You can see inhabitants more than 20 million and growing. And in the municipality context, the park surrounding by many municipalities, but in this case, more rural municipalities, not exactly the Mexico City urban context, but just a little bit out, that is more rural and, well, not so much. But again, trying to understand the condition, the natural conditions over there, the type of soils, flora, vegetation, natural flora and exotic flora, hydrology, how the water moves inside this big area. This area is about 140 square kilometers, so it's not a pocket garden. It's much bigger. And how is the people surrounding this area? So we realize that this is a very important place to make something, not only a park, but we design a productive land in the east and trying to offer people for the urban areas a place to create some agricultural ideas. This is the place they gave us in 2019. As you can see here, the terminal was the base. I mean, it was finished only the basement of the terminal and the platforms of 6 runways, airplanes, no? The runways there are 6 runways, and all the red things you can see in the photograph is a gravel stone from mining to create the base of these runways. And the president canceled that project, and he asked us to develop a park. And we recycling that materials, a lot of material that was there, abandoned, and we used that to create the park, recycling that. So we are trying to understand mobility, the proximity, and the infrastructure in the place, and how people move, and many aspects. And the only way to understand this is with a drone, with aerial views. And I use the drone as a super nice and important tool for me to understand large scale projects, because if you don't have this tool, it's impossible to understand these kind of places at that scale. So we take a lot of photographs from the sky to understand how dry is in one side and how with water is in the other side, and the channels and the disposals and the garbage areas and the channels. They want to put out the water from the airport. It was a project canceled for an airport, the biggest airport in Mexico, but it was canceled. And you can see in this map how they dry the lakes in many through the centuries, and how is the condition now, and in the same idea, how is the project now. They give us a project very dry, without water, because they don't want water inside the airport, so they dry it extremely. And you can see in 2009 this water reservoirs, and in 2019 that was a dumping area, totally dry, totally destroyed. I have to move fast. And the strategy was to take out the rainwater out to the municipality sewage system. That's incredible. I mean, how in these days people can say, we don't want water, no? And move out the water. I don't believe that. It's crazy for me. Well, that's the plan. Dry all the area to control flooding because there was an airport there. So they want desperately to move water from this part. In other aspects, this area, the Texcoco Lake, is the clue. I mean, the bone that articulate the natural protected areas surrounding Mexico City. These green points you can see in this map are protected areas. So the place in the center, Texcoco Lake, is a very important clue. It's a clue piece because it closed the necklace, no? So we start comparing the scale of this. It's a huge place. The size is like the Acapulco Bay, or it's a big part of Barcelona, for example. Comparing this area, Central Park is the 9th, if you can see the slide at the bottom, down, sorry. And we developed some strategies, design strategies, to create more public facilities, because it's a huge area. So we start to develop ideas how people can reach the place. They need mobility. They need maybe some bike paths. What we're going to do with waters, with ecological restoration. We developed some programs, recreation, equipments, sustainability, agricultural, this idea to create places to produce something like Aztecs did it many years ago in this part. And we create this zoning, and finally we give this master plan about, I have to repeat, about 140 square kilometers. As you can see in this slide, the right part is agricultural land, and in the center there is more water. There is more the antique lake, salty lake. So we have to collect again water there and create this park with a lot of lacustrine area. And we were inspiring by these pyramids, archaeological sites in Mexico, very, very old places. And we found many circular basements in archaeological sites. So we decided to collect and recycling the gravel redstone, and trying to create a public park in the center. But we understand the place is a very difficult place to establish flora, because it's very salty and alkaline. So we moved to understand which kind of plants we can use in these salty areas. And we developed these books and these files with all the plants we found in these areas. And again, we developed this idea to construct landscape units. You're going to see, this is the idea, to understand piece by piece how is working naturally the area. And we developed this map, and each pixel you can see is about 50 and 50 meters square. It's a quarter of a hectare, and we develop and we try to understand each part of these pieces in order to work with these landscape units with a simple strategy, not to need a lot of money to create a park, but better, we said, no, we have to let the nature design alone, and we trying to understand, and we have to move in that direction to push the natural restoration, avoiding a huge budget to create a park. So we create a park, the sport facilities in a tiny place, well, tiny, 200 hectares. But the other part of the land is very natural. And that is the result of this studying landscape piece by piece, I mean, landscape units. And the other thing important to mention is the relations between animals and flora. How many species we found of birds, for example, if the local native plants move and start restoring these abandoned areas. So we decided to work with that information and avoiding, as I said, to move with a lot of budget to control and design all the park. So that is the methodology we used, and we're trying to reuse the ancient knowledge about the salt production in that place. Aztecs used to produce a lot of salt and many other products in these difficult places. There's a little algae, the name is spirulina, it's a superfood, and we developed the idea to restore and create a big place to produce this food that is a superfood. And again, this is the master plan. There were the renders of that ideas. And finally, we start the construction in 2021, and the life returned to the place that was once completely destroyed. And we start to see this, birds nesting, flooding again. We develop a nursery, a special nursery to produce halophyte plants, I mean plants for the salty ambience. And we developed this nursery for the first project because we will need a lot of plants, so we need a nursery inside the park. And then the hurricanes and the rainy season do the work, and we only create some channels and some reservoirs to collect water and create some visitors viewing points and bike paths to go over there. And this was the airport when they conceal the works, they start flooding. It's incredible. This was in 2020, so 2 years after the concealed works, they start flooding again. And take a look. This was the runways totally flooded because it was a lake. You have to understand. You cannot create anything but a lake. So we have to work with water again, not without water. So this is the first aerial views I made with my drone, and you can see very dry. You can see this runway, 5-6 runways, totally dry, but again, the water coming up little by little. You can see the scale of this project. There's a machine over there, yellow, and you can see the size of this project. And in September 8, in 2021, 4 hurricanes came from the Gulf Coast, and then you have 2/3 of the land was flooded because 4 hurricanes aligned and came and water all this area in 2 weeks. It was flooded again. So imagine the airport function with this amount of water. They need to put out the water constantly, and it takes a lot of budget to maintain the airport without water. So the decision is said, no, cancel these works and create a park with a lot of water. And well, that's the incredible transformation, the life's return. And we only create these sport facilities in the middle and in the south part. And now we recycle all the gravel they abandoned in these runways. And we decided to put these circular forms to create platforms and develop the park, the sport park. As you can see, this is the final works. At the end, this was open 2 months ago, and well, it's not finished. They are already working on progress, but finally there is a park, there is sports, and many people that live surrounding this area have a super nice park inside, no? And well, finally, I just mentioned, because there's no more time, I just want to mention what's the next step I want to go. The next step is a UNESCO park in this northern part of the basin, Mexico basin, a place where was very known by Humboldt, Bonpland, and Rugendas. These people in the 19th century, they came and discovered many geological sites, very interesting. This was the place of the first place they produce silver around the world is here. And this was the first, and there's a lot of mining, abandoned quarries, and we have to do something with all of this. And I think this is my new job. I want to move this place and trying to go this big scale in order to conserve the geological heritage. The cultural heritage is very strong in these areas, but the disaster came because they want to create a lot of highways, they want to create resorts, they want to create many things and destroy this heritage, cultural heritage that consists in mining towns and shepherds that are being destroyed by now because they want to move the progress, urban progress in these beautiful areas that are spectacular geological sites in the north of the basin of Mexico. It's very close to Mexico City. It's 1.5 hours to reach these places. So we have to protect this and create more intelligent places and not destroying the landscape, trying to control the urbanization and protect these beautiful sites surrounding Mexico. Take a look, these canyons, the rivers in the lowest part, the valleys, they are agricultural land. These were geological interest sites, geosites. And finally, I just want, well, there's a potential in agricultural head-escaping gardens because this is very dry zone in some parts. So I want to finish, said and conclude saying that we have to go to use this approach, this methodology of landscape units and design with nature instead of continuing the urban sprawl up on these beautiful places. I just want to say thanks. And if you have questions or something, I want to thank you.
Wow, Pedro, it's very impressive. Thank you very much. Yeah, the point of questions is a very good one. I would urge everybody to leave their questions in the chat box. I have several, but that might give people a chance to start typing. Maybe Prof. Wiwi also has questions. Prof. Ruko, if you have a question, jump in, please, of course. Allow me to maybe synthesize a little bit in relation to the IKN assignment. What is really striking, Pedro, to me, and I think to everybody online, is the kind of mapping exercise that you've done. So looking at all these layers,
yeah,
also kind of looking beyond the borders of your project at a larger area. And then looking at a very large time frame, both back in history, but also to the far future. So I think that's a simple takeaway for everybody who's keen to work on the competition. The second, and I have questions about that, but the second point would be your take on ecosystems and ecosystem services. It seems to be a buzzword nowadays, and people like to kind of use it. I'm really struck by the fact that you are very comfortable to let nature kind of take its course and kind of almost let it rewild, and even let the more brutal forces of nature, such as water, really take over this vast area. Do you see like factual evidence that is a kind of a form of resilience that protects Mexico City from flooding?
Of course, Neville. For example, the Texcoco Lake now, because Mexico City is sinking down, because it is a city created on a lake, and the underground soils are not strong soils. So the city of Mexico is sinking. Now Mexico City is 10 meters down the lake of Texcoco. If we don't manage that huge amount of water over the lake of Texcoco, that cause an impact, very severe impact in Mexico cities, like Valencia. You saw Spain now, just a few days. So we have to manage these boundaries, these frontiers. We have to understand these limits, these interfaces between this open space, open landscape, and the crowded city. If we manage as you said, the strong forces of nature, maybe we can avoid natural disasters. So we have to emphasize work in that way and try to understand the forces, the natural forces. It's very important.
Right, and that's an immediate financial benefit, basically, not replicating the disaster we saw in Spain.
Exactly.
I think the question I see in the chat is kind of related to that. If there's a few kind of bundled together. One that of a consultation. Did you were you able to kind of connect with local communities that are still operating in that area, even though it seems like a desert to me? And were you able to kind of generate economic benefits from the park?
Okay, questions are benefits, economic benefits from the park, and what, which
Sort
was
of
the
community engagement or yeah, community consultation. Did you reach out to were there any active communities, which I know they are?
Well, let me tell you first that there are about 3 million people surrounding the park, the Skoko Lake Park, more or less 3 million people surround. So, and it's not very easy to get inside the park because you have a kind of highways surrounding the area. So it is impossible to cross over the highways and get the park, no? Get in the park. So now people are using the park because these sport facilities we create in the center, and is the more accessible area. But in the future, and that is the reason of this kind of evolutionary planning, do you remember, dear Neville, is people starts to move inside from different places and use that part in different ways. For example, there is a zone we understand is very nice place to create these community gardens, agricultural lands to produce food, but in a big scale. So this part of the park, for sure, in the future, people will use as an agricultural land. But in the other hand, you have salty areas, and now are people producing a lot of salt in that, as Aztecs did it 2,000 years ago. People from the north part of the park, in that salty area, they came again and use and start producing salt. So for me, it's a kind of people engagement in many different ways, and I hope these different uses of the place from many people start to design and continue to design the park from many years to come. I mean, we don't have a master plan and that's it. No. We have a master plan only to trigger the idea. But in the next future, we have to move with the people and other architects, and I'll be there for that in that time. I mean, from 20, 30, or maybe 50 years ago from now, there are for sure many architects, landscape architects, working with people in develop some parts of the park, because the park is 140 square kilometers. So it's very big. We cannot design the entire park. And the economic benefits for sure are the environmental services, because the control of floodings in Mexico, no? This is one, you said. But also this producing agricultural, but also take a look, this there are many problems, because health problems in the people surrounding the area, because the soil that flows with the air, with the wind, and people ¿cómo se dice respirar? Breath that polluted air. So if we replenish with vegetation, with flora, we reduce the amount of volatile particles and avoiding health problems to people, to surrounded people. In that case, that is an economical impact, believe me. No? So there are many ways, I think.
Well, that's a great example of a very important benefit, but it's one that fits in this whole kind of holistic approach. And let's be honest, what the plug was pulled out of a very different economic model. The airport, I think, was one of the most expensive ever to be built.
Exactly.
Halfway, or it was at least a quarter on their way, maybe. Many contracts had to be paid off to kind of kick these companies out. Many investors So the question is, I guess, that a business model or financial benefits tend to target a certain group of the population, but maybe not all of them, or certainly not the less privileged. I think
Well, let me
in your situation, you showed that beautiful map of all the local communities right against the park. So I guess they are the ones that are benefiting.
Yes, of course, of course. No, well, and I forgot to mention that with the airport, there was a big develop real estate program. So it was wait for me a minute, please.
Mm-hmm.
Just a minute, just a minute.
Take your time. Good morning.
My girls are going to school, and
Gorgeous.
I am leaving from Mexico City. I have to go to United States, so I said goodbye. Sorry.
Very good, very good. That's lovely.
And that, well, I mentioned that there was a very criminal plan because the airport was an idea that trigger real estate develop in this area. So if we don't stop this development, Mexico City just go further in northeast side and with no green spaces. Believe me. So this is a paradigmatic situation because this president said, no, stop development, because the development in Latin America is not as super planned like in Europe or North America. It's more like devastation, no? The urban sprawl. So this project stops obviously the businessman and all of this in order to create a big central park surrounding inside the urban Mexico City, no? So I think the economical benefits are not well understood by now. We have to monitoring. One of the purposes of the project is to start monitoring and start research how is the amount of benefits in terms of environmental services. If we understand that, for sure, it's a lot of money. But we don't understand now. And real estate people obviously never want to understand that. That's the risk. So we have to put on paper and in black numbers and said, this is we are saving this amount of money if we let nature get inside Mexico City a little bit.
Yeah, that's be a hard calculation because it's by default it's about complexity and about sort of this holistic approach, right? There was one final aspect to the first question, which is a bit cheeky maybe, but if you would narrow it down here, they ask for 3 principles that you would consider to kind of guide you in this design process.
3 principles that guide me in this process?
Yeah, so what are your your benchmarks or your stepping stones that kind of allow you to in an extremely complex context and in a very dynamic process that kind of allow you to stay on track, that you know what you're doing and how you unfold, because you're not making a blueprint, as you mentioned.
Okay, let me say first, I think engage with local people. I think the first one is trying to engage with local people. in order to convince them to understand that the landscape is very important to survive. As easy as that. Second, you have to understand the natural forces. I mean, the environmental units. You have to go and search and research geology, topography, weather, climate change, natural aspects and social aspects. That's the methodology of Ian McHarg. But we have to include the cultural aspects. It's very important because Ian McHarg was an Anglo-Saxon landscape design. They don't need to deal with people that lives in this place for 3,000 years ago. But in Latin America, you have to go with that people that is now alive and with her own cultural, and you have to understand cultural aspects, because I mentioned and I said you have to understand the DNA of the landscape. What it means, the DNA, ancient people that lives here from 3,000 years ago, understand perfect which kind of plants we need, how to use that plant, why the river goes up and down, and many other aspects. And they put this knowledge in the ritual and in a kind of religious knowledge. So it is very important to get in contact with local people and to understand the natural environmental people, and you understand the common this knowledge, because natural forces and people understanding for many years is a super heritage. I mean, you understand perfect when you see people drinking that water or using that food or recycling that materials or constructing by this and that material. Is beautiful knowledge, and you have to work with that. And the third aspect, and is very important also, is trying to move by art. Trying to move by art, any kind of art. Obviously, we move with many ideas of land art and all of that stuff, but we have to move by art, and I mean, we have to understand people, sensible for nature. I think that knowledge and art and heritage is very important to trying to design the future cities.
I can see that in the slides that I hadn't seen before, with the big rings kind of taking shape as land art in this environment. I can really see that. And to your second point, I love this idea that we tend to forget that we shouldn't just engage with these communities. We shouldn't just try to understand them, but actually what you're saying is you need to tap into that existing knowledge that lives there and has been there for so long. I think that's a wonderful point.
For sure.
Quickly reading this. So maybe there's one question about integration of farming, water, natural landscapes. I guess that is part of your design principles, right? You're mapping all the layers, but at some point, as you start planning, there has to be a way where you're kind of figuring out what gets priority, what is kind of the backbone of the spatial backbone of your plan, right?
Yeah, you have to move quick in that case. You have to move quick because I said there's no time. There's no time, and that's why now now I am trying to convince people at the university to create not one but many landscape schools working in real time in all these places, because we have the impact of this climate change and all of that. This year was very dry, and many agricultural land was devastated, and reservoirs of water here in this area was dry. So we cannot expect a lot of time to plan, to understand, to move, and to see other examples in Barcelona or in Paris or in Netherlands or in New York. Now we have to move fast as we can, because now we are facing. So the backbone is trying to understand the methodology, trying to move with the people and live with the people, trying to be there with all of that, trying to feel the weather, trying to understand energy, and in a very fast way, try to create the master plan. Obviously, you have to know that master plan is not a static master plan. It's a bow plan. I mean, it's a master plan can moves, change, adapting plan. Is a master adapting plan. It's not a master plan. So if you have the idea, the general idea, you can move in that way. Of course, you have to change and adapt in that move some new things you understand in real time. No?
Yeah,
There's another, sorry, let me mention that in Mexico, there's another very important aspect. There's very dangerous, there's the drug dealers, there's the very dangerous zones. And that is part of the plan. You have to understand that. You have to understand and deal with that. It's not easy.
No, I can imagine. Somebody here uses a nice term, dynamic master plan, but what I don't understand, if you can emphasize or maybe allude a little bit, why the urgency is so great. Why do you feel such a time pressure?
Well, because I saw this year, I saw a big extensions of forest here in the north of the basin of Mexico, the place that I am living now. A vast area of forest dead. It's the first time in my life I see in front of me dead trees, because the dry, unusual dry, in a place that goes 3,000 meters from sea level, and every year is with a little bit of humidity, clouds, a little bit of water. Well, this year I saw many areas dying because there's no water, and that impacts on me very much. So I think we need to start moving. For example, Neville, I think, okay, let's start to understand, to analyze, to surveying the zones, to understand and create a master plan. But in the meantime, we have to reforestate the urban land. We have to clean the channels. We have to create a reservoirs of water, because if we have a strong storm next year without the forest up in the hills, we are going to have a slides earth back in coming down to this city. So we have to start moving a little bit, but start moving with the authorities, local authorities, and start to say, hey, maybe we have to do something right now.
Right. So your fight, it sounds big, but it is big. Your fight against the impact of global warming is extremely tangible, extremely real, immediate.
I think is.
So two problems, we ran out of time, and that's kind of a very sad but also very important message to end on. Pedro, let's pick it up at the end, towards the end of this project. I want to thank you for very inspiring but also very urgent message. Pauruko, would you love to take over from me and do a final wrap up?
Yes.
No. Yeah. Sorry.
No, please. Thank you.
No. I understand, Pedro, but it's not. It's your name is
Roku.
Roku. Yeah. No, sorry. Go, Roku.
Yes. I think it's impossible to wrap up this very rich and a lot of aspect in this discussion. I think we all here now. Hopefully, my sound is very clear there. So yes, I think it's impossible to wrap up everything, but I think it's very nice discussion with you, Pedro, and everybody here. And then you share many things that very relevant for us, and especially for the student who would like to join in the competitions to understand how to plan like a safeguarding for a city, working with nature at a big scale, and you share as well the key important principles that we need to consider. I think that's that we can have from the discussion right now, and I think many other things that we can take from this discussion. And thank you so much for everybody that join with us today. And I think there will be more and more lecture next week. Please, we will share again for our lecture for the next week. Thank you so much. Back to you, Neville.
Thank you, Pak. That's wonderful. Thank you, Pedro, again. And we see everybody hopefully next Tuesday.
Thank you, Neville, and thank you very much. And I appreciate really your skills to do this kind of things, no? To create these sessions and give them to the students in order to create a plan with many visions. So I think you are a key element in this new way of understanding landscape, and not only understanding but working with this process. Thank you very much, all of you, and I hope to see you in some time here in Mexico or there.
We'll be there.
Thanks
again.
Thank you, Pedro. Look forward to
you.
welcome you to Semarang, Indonesia. Bye-bye. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.